Have you ever thought of getting guaranteed ignitions every time you use your ability in Destiny 2? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you guys how you can be able to do that. Here is how you can be able to get guaranteed ignitions every single time with your melee ability. But first, we're going to have to know what does ignitions do. So when you proc ignition, it's a large solar explosion which deals damage in an area around the target, and it also stuns unstoppable champions. And by having this build, you're going to be able to use ignitions every single time you activate your melee ability. But in order for you to proc ignitions, you would need to have this solar aspect called consecration. When you slide and activate your charge melee ability, it launches a wave of solar energy in front of you, damaging and scorching targets in front of you as you leap in the air. Once you leap in the air, and by doing that, you would need to activate your charged melee again to slam on the ground and create a second larger wave of damaging solar energy. If that wave scorches a target, they ignite. And you can also be able to buff the damage of your melee ability by using the second solar aspect, which is called Roaring Flames. Final blows with your solar abilities or ignitions increases the damage of your solar abilities. It can stack up to 3 times. So you have 2 ways to buff your melee damage. It's by either your solar abilities or your ignitions. And for this build, you're going to be able to do both of those, which gives you a higher chance to proc this solar aspect. And of course, might as well we're talking about the melees and what you need for this build. For me, I would recommend you would use the solar melee called Throwing Hammer. Of course, for the Throwing Hammer, you're usually going to throw it at an enemy, but in this build, you're not going to do that at all. Why I chose to use the Throwing Hammer is because usually when you would use Hammer Strike, which is the other solar melee, whenever I use this ability, it would make me Hammer Strike instead of using the Consecration solar aspect. So for me, I would recommend you guys to use Throwing Hammer instead of using Hammer Strike. And for the solar grenades, we're going to need to have more survivability for this build because currently there isn't that much healing for you to survive more. So the grenade that you would put is Healing Grenade, which gives you restoration and cure whenever you activate it. And here's a cool thing about the Healing Grenade. Whenever you hit yourself with Healing Grenade, you're going to proc 2 perks. The first one is Restoration. You regenerate health and shields over time, and it can also not be interrupted by taking damage. And the other perk is called Cure. You are healed in a burst of Mending Solar Light. So mainly for these 2 perks, the best one is Restoration. Now onto the super ability. The super ability you're going to be using is Hammer of Soul. But if you want to have a quick super on the Solar Titan, you could go for Burning Maw. But in this video, I'm using Hammer of Soul. Now onto the fragments for this build. And these fragments are very good for ignitions. Let's start with the first solar fragment, and it's called Ember of Eruption. Your solar ignitions have increased area of effect, and whenever you have this fragment on, it would give you plus 10 strength. The second solar fragment is Ember of Blistering. Defeating targets with solar ignitions grants grenade energy. That is very good for your healing grenades, so you can be able to proc that even more often. The third solar fragment is Ember of Searing. Defeating scorched targets, it would grant you melee energy and also creates a fire sprite. And whenever you summon a fire sprite, it would grant you grenade energy. And the last solar fragment is Ember of Ashes. You apply more scorch stacks to a target. I put this solar fragment because the more scorch stacks you put on a target, the higher chance they'll be able to ignite. And that's what we're trying to accomplish in this build. And if you would like to try out the build for yourself, the dim link will also be in the link of the description. And here's the exotic armor piece that you would need for this build. The exotic armor piece is going to be on your chest armor slot, and it's called Hallowfire Heart. This chest is very good for this build because of the armor perk, which is called the Sunfire Furnace. Improves the recharge rate of your solar abilities, greatly improves recharge rate while your super is charged. So you remember how I told you guys that if you would like to go for the quickest super for the Solar Titan, you can do that as well if you want to be more efficient with this build. But we have mods that would decrease the cooldown of your super even more, but we'll get onto that later. And it also provides a small benefit to airborne effectiveness stat of all weapons, but the last one's not going to really matter, but the other 2 are. So your main goal is to, whenever you have your super, on the bottom left of your screen, you will see Sunfire Furnace as the perk. And as long as you have your super, that buff will stay there until you use your super. When you're on your solar subclass on the Titan, it would give you a plus 75% additional base grenade and melee regeneration rate. But if your solar super is charged, it would give you a plus 350 additional base grenade and melee regeneration rate. That is a lot just by not using your super. And might as well, we're talking about the chest. Here's what armor mods you would need for it. All of them are going to be resist mods. So the first one, you're going to need harmonic resistance. So the subclass that we're using is solar. So it would be solar resist. The second armor mod is void resist, reduces incoming void damage from combatants. And the last mod is concussive dampener, reduces incoming area of effect damage from combatants. And here's this exotic weapon that can also give you tons of melee energy. And that exotic weapon is called the Monte Carlo. This auto rifle is very good for melee builds because of the intrinsic trait for this auto rifle, and it's called Monte Carlo method. Dealing damage with this weapon reduces your melee cooldown and grants a chance to fully charge your melee ability with each kill. That is very, very good for this build because we're mainly prioritizing in our melees. And might as well, we're getting melee kills with this build. The weapon perk for the Monte Carlo is pretty good as well, and it's called Markov Chain. This weapon gains increased damage from melee kills and kills with this weapon. Melee kills grant ammo for this weapon. So whenever you deal damage, you get melee ability energy, and you have a chance to instantly fill up your melee charge whenever you get a kill. And also whenever you get a melee kill, it will buff the damage of your Monte Carlo. So this is the best weapon to pair with this build. And for the energy and power weapon, you're mainly not going to be using those weapons because you're primarily going to be using the Monte Carlo. But in this video, I'm going to show you guys what weapons I used. Starting with the energy weapon, I'm using a solar fusion rifle called the Cartesian Coordinate that comes with lead from gold and Vorpal. But in this video, I was using Grave Robber and Vorpal. But you don't have to use this Cartesian Coordinate in your builds. You can use other solar fusion rifles if you would like. Like for example, this solar fusion rifle that came out in Season of Defiance called Royal Executioner. Perks that you would want to go for this fusion rifle is Envious Assassin and Incandescent. Now for the power weapon, I was using the solar rocket launcher called Peasant Vengeance. You can also be able to get this rocket launcher in the Vault of Glass. And the perks that I would think you would want to go for is auto loading holster and cluster bomb. But in the video that you're seeing here, I was using overflow and cluster bomb. Now let's head to the armor, starting with the helmet. Remember how I said that you can be able to decrease the cooldown of your supers even more? Here's the mod that would do it. The mod is called Dynamo, reduces your super cooldown when using your class ability near targets. The second armor mod is Hands On, gain bonus super energy on melee kills. And this other mod would give you an orb of power whenever you get a double kill or more with your Monte Carlo. And that mod is called Kinetic Siphon. Rapid kinetic weapon final blows creates an orb of power. And plus, we're going to need as much orbs of power as possible to get even more melee ability energy. Now we're going to be on the Gauntlets. This mod would give you even more melee energy, but it will take away armor charges. And it's called Melee Kickstart. When your melee energy is fully expended, you gain melee energy. And here's another mod that would give you an orb of power. And this one is called Heavy Handed. Your powered melee final blows creates an orb of power. And the last armor mod you would want to use for your gauntlet is Impact Induction. Causing damage with your melee attack reduces your grenade cooldown. And of course, gives you more healing grenades. We love that, right? Now let's head to the boots. The armor mods for the boots are my favorite because of this armor mod called Invigoration. It reduces your melee cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power. We have more mods that would decrease the cooldown and also give you more melee energy on your legs. And here's another one that could give you more melee energy, and it's called Absolution. Reduces all ability cooldowns each time you pick up an orb of power. And you can also stack this with the previous mod that I just discussed and this other one called Innervation. Reduces grenade cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power. So Innervation and Invigoration stacks with Absolution. So if you would pick one orb of power, it would reduce all of your ability cooldowns, and it will do that even more for your grenades and for your melee. Now onto the Titan mark. The first one is Reaper. After using your class ability, your next weapon final blow spawns spawns an orb of power. So you would activate your rally barricade, and the first kill that you would get after you activate your rally barricade, you will be rewarded with an orb of power. And also by activating your rally barricade, you're gonna proc this other mod that would collect nearby orbs around you, and it's called Powerful Attraction. Automatically collects nearby orbs of power when you activate your class ability. And also whenever you activate your rally barricade, we're also gonna proc this other mod that would reduce the cooldown of your grenades, which is called Bomber. I just want to clarify that the gameplay that you're seeing on screen, I was not using any seasonal buffs that would buff this build. Did you guys know that I have a Discord server? Neither did I. In the Discord server, we do PvE helps, LFGs, and if you're into that stuff, be sure to hop over into the Discord server. And if you would like to learn more, please click in the link in the description. And if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button and also subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it, and I hope to see you guys in the next Destiny 2 video.